Hey there, friends. Welcome to the Being Brown and Bold podcast. I'm your host, Jess Thomas. We are excited about inviting you into some really interesting conversations about stepping out of your comfort zone, taking chances, and being bold. Today, I'm chatting with Shruthi Parker. She's a digital content creator with thousands of followers on social media. She has built trust with her followers by using her voice, which is authentic, passionate, sassy, informative, vegetarian, in love, and well-traveled. She shares about motherhood, marriage, travel, eats, her thoughts, her style, and her faith. She and her husband and her 3 children live in Austin, Texas. Shruthi, it is so great to have you today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to just chat with you and exchange some thoughts.
Awesome. So at our podcast, we think names and pronunciation of names are really important. So tell us about your name and how you got it.
Sure. So my name is Shruthi and it means tune. So if you're singing off tune, like my voice teacher, when I did classical Indian music, she would say, your Shruthi is off, your Shruthi is off. And my dad gave me that name. He chose that name before they even knew the gender. He was like, yeah, I think we're having a girl and I think we're going to name her Shruthi.
That's awesome. Aw, I love that. Because I feel like when I watch you on social media, you're like that whole carrying a tune and music. I think that's like, it's all interconnected. So that's totally beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What does it mean to be you?
Man, isn't that the question we're all wondering? So if you see me kind of like shaking or you hear some odd sounds, that's because my baby girl's in my lap. And I would say that just is the epitome of who I am right now. I'm a mom of 3. I am married to an amazing man that I met in college. I run a business, digital content creation business, mostly on my website and blog, or website and Instagram. And I'd say what it means to be me is, frankly, just discovering the roles and responsibilities as well as gifts and blessings that God has created for me. And I think every day that's just what I'm doing. I'm just seeking more of who he's made me to be and what he wants me to do.
That's neat. Yeah, I feel like this is such a multifaceted question of like, tell us about yourself. So let's go to your cultural heritage. How has that informed your life and your work?
Right. So I was born in India and then brought up here in Texas. And I'd say it's informed me and my work because it gives me a second lens to look at everything. Sometimes I look at a lens first through the eyes of an Indian woman, and sometimes I look through it through the eyes of an American woman. And so it's a superpower. Sometimes it's very confusing, but generally I'm able to see things in a more well-rounded way because I have 2 very strong cultures.
And I know that a lot of Indian homes, everything is centered around the family.
Right.
Which I think is such a great thing that we have, is that that's kind of like our default.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, coming to America, how old were you again when you came to the US?
Just 1. I was super young baby.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you even remember life in India at all?
Well, I would go back every other year up until college.
Okay.
And so I do remember it pretty well.
That's neat. It's been like 20 years since I've been, 19 years. Last time I was there is when we were adopting our youngest son, but we're hoping to go next year because he's like, I'm going to know where I'm from. So,
right. My grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone lived there until I was in college. And then a few people moved over here. And so to see family meant needing to go back.
Right. Tell me, when you were little, when you were growing up, what did you imagine your life would be like as an adult?
Man, honestly, I always thought I would go to college and then I would move abroad. That was it.
Yeah.
And
to
so
Asia?
I always thought London, like I just love London. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to move to London. And that's That's literally all I thought about.
Did you do a study abroad there?
Nope. I did not do a study abroad there, but I did move there after I got married.
And was it what you had expected it to be like?
It was beyond what I expected. It was amazing. We just made
Yeah.
such great friends. I loved, having like really good Indian food all the time. I love the fact you walk down the street and you hear 10 languages. It was really nice to not feel like you stuck out for a little bit.
That's really neat. I did get to do a study abroad there for a semester. And, life as a poor college student is going to look different than if you actually were able to go out and pay for a good Indian meal, which
right.
back then. But I had some really good like shawarma there and good fish and chips there.
Right.
So, yeah. So when it came to your career path, did you have any difficulties with choosing something that you felt was going to be fulfilling for you, but also honoring your family? Because a lot of her families have expectations. How did that work?
So after college, I definitely went the traditional route, took a job in tech in marketing, and that was great. Covered my bases, took care of my needs, was able to save a little. And I actually had kind of a consistent job as well when I started my blog. I was a consultant, and the thing is I wasn't put on a project. So I was just sort of waiting to be put on a project. And this was while we were abroad in London. And so I can't just sit still. And so I was thinking, what am I going to do while I'm waiting to be put on a project? And so I thought, why don't I create a brand from scratch and see what I can do with it so that, it just adds to my portfolio. And when I move back from London, if I want to move out of this field, I can approach companies and say, hey, look, I created this brand from scratch. And that's honestly how I started my blog. I never expected that to become a full-time thing, never expected that to become a business on its own. And isn't that how it usually goes? You don't expect it to happen. But then it started happening, and my family was, kind of confused, but they also could tell that I was very happy and I was seeing results. So my dad was very encouraging. He was like, I don't really know exactly what you're doing, but I'm reading more and more about blogs and the digital world. And he's huge in software and tech. So he was aware that there was something called an influencer. And so he was really encouraging. My mom was like, well, she's married, so it doesn't matter what she does. And I was like, okay, Mom.
That's really funny. So this was like a huge move from Texas to London.
Sure.
And doing this blog. Did you feel at that time like, oh, this is like a really bold move for me? Or did you just feel like, no, this is just natural. It's just the way it's going?
I did not think anything of it. I was just like, this is fun for me. My major was film. So photography, videography, all of that was just fun. I just was like, I'm going to keep my skills sharp. I really actually had never followed a blogger before I started a blog. That's like how unaware I was of this whole world. Yeah.
Wow. I feel like that's super bold to like just go for it.
I just didn't even know about it, which I think was actually a protection because I didn't feel like need to filter or feel like I needed to conform because I really had no idea that this was a world that existed.
Yeah, that's amazing. I got into culinary the same kind of way where I just kind of had this idea of like cooking for people and like I didn't know it already existed. And I was like, wait, there's a whole like certificate I can get in this. And then I just kept, just walking through and then like, who knows where the road is going.
I love that. I love the food videos that you create. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm drooling.
Oh, thank you. If I come to Austin, I'll like cook with you in person. Do you know how to make sambar or do you like sambar?
I love sambar. I actually just went to a hotel where they had French fries and the butter was like sambar flavored.
Wow.
Yeah, they called it their brown butter. And I was like, okay, like I can taste the spices you've used. This tastes like sambar and ghee mixed together. And I just asked my husband, I was like, can you try this? What does this taste like? He goes, is this sambar?
That's so cool. Okay, that's giving me ideas because I'm always trying to think of like different ways to like mix up things.
Right.
Thank you for that idea. Thank you,
sure.
restaurant, whichever I'm stealing it from. No.
No,
Um,
I was shocked. It was like at a bar. I was like, this is crazy.
oh, that's super cool.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're in London. How
right.
was it like making friends there or forming community in
Sure.
like a brand new country?
Right. It was incredible actually, because there's no like American culture church where people sort of have a consumeristic perspective. So to be in London and to go to church means like, oh, I'm really being intentional about going to church. And that's where I made my closest friends while I was over there. I met them through like the church, through a network that our church is a part of. And so my husband and I moved there on a Friday and we went to this church on a Sunday, and literally everyone could tell we were new. There were only 60 members. They're like, hey, we're all doing a picnic after, come join us. Oh, we're all doing tea after the picnic, come join us. Oh, we're all doing prayer hour after tea. I was like, what is happening here? Like, this is crazy. But the thing is, they all loved being together. And we made really, really good friends, like people who have visited us, like 4 families have come and visited us. We're going back to visit them this year. Just really great friends, which most people are like shocked to hear, but I'm like, I don't know. There was something really special about that.
Yeah, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I did my study abroad and I visited a church there and they're like, we're all going for pints afterward. I'm like, okay, I literally detest beer, but I'll come with you.
Right. Right.
And just like it's a different culture. And I loved it. Yeah. That
Right.
was like a highlight of my life.
Right. Somebody told me Americans are like peaches, like really soft and fluffy on the outside, but hard to get to know. Whereas
Mm,
British people are like coconuts, kind of like hard to get like on the outside, but then once you get to know them, they're really sweet. And I found that to be so true. Like, so true.
ah, that's a really interesting perspective to think of it that way. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then you come back to the States.
Right.
Do you feel like that was a bold move to like, did you think you'd be in London like forever, or did you know it was a
So
short-term
I
thing?
think something that's been really cool about life is that you can like wait for a door to be open, or you can open the door. And I think there's like a practical time for both of those. But in my 20s, I gained a lot more courage of who I was as a person and started just opening doors more instead of being more passive like I was as a teenager and growing up. So with London, we were like, we love this. This is great. And then we moved back and we're like, we love this too. We love Austin. We miss London, of course, but I don't know. I feel like bold choices, the opposite of that would be passive. And when it comes to things like marriage, career, where you live, like really important foundational things, I think you have to be bold.
So were you ever fearful, or did you have any like hesitations, fears that were like, oh, I don't know if I should be doing this, or
Right. Not with London. With my blog, absolutely, because when you're starting a business, like you're super invested in the success of it. And it took a while to get there. So I was fearful for sure. Like I had to do other side jobs while my blog was taking off, like Uber driving, wedding planning, contract work, marketing, like, and all of those, there's fear there. You want to make sure that you're able to still make ends meet while you're building something else.
yeah,
Right.
I did not know you had all those jobs. So were all those jobs pre-children, or did you
Yes.
have those while having children?
Oh, no. Pre-children. Like I started having children once my business was doing really well, but I did not, that was like a thing in my mind. I was like, I will not feel free to have children while I'm still like putting in odd amount of hours and like grinding, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
And then how do you feel like having kids like changed the choices that you make?
Sure. Well, I think my entire, my priorities have shifted. It used to be focus on myself and my husband. Now it's like oh, it's just so different. Like my priorities have shifted so incredibly. I've noticed a shift in everything, my time, my friendships, my self-focus. Everything's different. I want to be healthier, not for myself, but for my kids in all ways of life. And that includes like work-life balance, what I'm physically eating, what I'm cooking, like just they've they have changed my perspective on life. And so that also means with work.
If you could go to your London self, like go back in time and where you are now, what would you tell yourself about like how to prepare or like, I don't know. Or would you?
I think when we were in London, we did a ton of travel, like, you know, those flights from London to Morocco were 30 pounds, which is crazy.
Right.
And we did a lot of travel. And there's this kind of thought in the back of my head of, is this excessive? Like, should I just stay put? And should I, you know, I just had these like doubts. Sometimes when you are given like blessings, you can succumb to like this weird doubt or like guilt. And you're like, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't have this. But every good thing comes from above. And I would tell her, I would go back in time and tell her, hey, don't feel guilty about this because this is the time. This is the time to do these things, meet these cultures, meet these people, and then you will have children and you will feel like good about living a quieter life and slow paced, more still. So I would just encourage her to keep doing what she was doing.
Yeah, that sounds good. Were you like a baby person, like growing up? Did you always see yourself?
No. Were you?
Same. No.
Okay.
And I used to feel bad about saying that out loud. That
Right.
like, I'm not really into babies. If I see a baby, I don't want to hold it. I don't want. And so I was like, but it feels like unnatural, like I should. But then when I've started saying it out loud, other women are like, me too. And I felt bad too. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I ditto your feelings.
Did you do much babysitting or did you have younger siblings?
Never. I never babysat, never changed a diaper until I had a child.
Was that very bold of you to do?
Well, so that's like the thing. My friends are always like, so what made you want to have a kid? And I'm like, because I loved having parents. I still do. And I love our family unit growing up. We did so many fun things. And so I think for myself, I thought, I love my husband. I loved and love my family. I want to have a family unit with this man, but I'm scared of having babies. So I just thought to myself, okay, you can do this. You have to get through the baby phase to have the kid phase. And then now I don't even want to get through the baby phase. Like I'm really enjoying the baby phase, but I had to kind of rationalize to get from A to C, you have to go through B.
Do you feel like as you've lived your life and encountered different situations, the content that you create, because I know like you have like a lot of different types of content from like food and clothes and lifestyle, like everything. Do you feel like I really want to do this, but I feel like I should be doing this instead?
I started out with a different topic every day. Like when I first started my blog, I did, I'm not even going to remember, but it was like food or something on Monday. No. It was like love and marriage on Monday, travel on Tuesday, food on Wednesday, faith and thoughts on Thursday, and fashion on Friday. And I did those 5 pieces every single day for like a while. But the thing is, you can feel as a creator when content is not organic. And right now in my phase of life with 3 children that are all under the age of 4, the majority of my life is motherhood. That's just the point. That's just the like truth. Motherhood and marriage. And so I don't want to fight trying to be something I'm not, or I don't want to be something I'm not. And so I try to fight that urge to be not organic. You can you can tell through the content that comes through too. If you're like, oh, you know, where your like life is I feel like where like the best writing you create is. And so that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I feel like when I was at your stage, I was really happy if I got a shower that day. And I would like never dress up or do makeup or anything. And then like I see when you're all dressed up. So my question is, if you weren't making content, do you think you
Right.
would be as proactive to do those things?
Yeah, because my mom always took care of herself, and her definition of taking care of herself was just not succumbing to like self-pity or doing things for someone else, but just like what for you puts a pep in your step. And so for me,
Mhm.
like I do enjoy getting dressed up. I enjoy having a clean house. I enjoy like seeing my friends. And obviously there's the reality of motherhood as well. I don't think it stops you from doing those things. It might minimize those things. But I would still do those things because I genuinely enjoy like blending eyeshadow and organizing my closet. And, you know, that's what
Yeah.
my mom always says this. She's like, your life doesn't stop with kids. Your life doesn't stop with kids. And that was probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I needed before I had them.
Yeah, that's so wise because I think too many women think this is it, like this is like all I'm gonna do.
Right. There's no like there shouldn't be self glorification. Like you're not a better mom if you look a certain way. And that could
Mm,
be like, you're not a better mom if you're put together. You're not a better mom if you look like a slob. Like you are a good mom if you love your children and they're fed, clean, prayed over, just like all of those things, I think, in my
mhm,
mind. But yeah, I don't succumb to like the mom culture where it's like you have to be so exhausted and out of your mind to be a good mom. I also
mhm,
have the privilege of having a husband who really does do his like share. Like
mhm,
he's not like, okay, kids equal you, which
mhm,
I am aware that's a privilege and I'm very, very grateful for.
mhm, mhm. Okay, how would you encourage someone who's listening who is unfamiliar with your background to understand your world better?
So I'm an Indian American Christian woman.
Very
Who
common. There's so many of us, right?
Right, we're so common. I was not born up Christian, born or raised Christian. I was Hindu till I was 18, or raised in a Hindu home. And I would say I've always had to question why I believe the things I do and why I do the things I do. So whether that's motherhood, faith, dating, I like to really think through why am I doing these things? And then once I make a decision, I commit to it. So hopefully that will help you understand more like bold choices. They were never spontaneous choices. They were always thought through, but I would say I cannot think of a bold choice I've made that wasn't worth it.
Hmm. Even though it was probably hard at the time.
Oh, for sure. Like it was so excruciating to like date in college and like no Indian guy was interested in dating a Christian girl. Like the Indian guys that I was friends with, they were like, oh, you're so great, but you're Christian. I was like, okay, great, cool.
Mm,
um,
mhm,
or like sometimes I felt the opposite, or like Christian guys were like, oh, but she's different, she's Indian. And so I think
mm.
just that adversity has shaped a lot of the decisions I've made. Becoming a Christian from a Hindu background, that was really hard.
So it was difficult.
Right. It's difficult not fitting into a box. It's difficult not fitting into a box.
Yeah.
So I would encourage any listener, if you don't fit into a box, you're probably doing something right.
Mm, that's good to hear because I think most people are like, no, something's wrong and I need to change. Or do you ever listen to Brene Brown or read her
No,
stuff?
I don't.
She talks about this concept of fitting in versus belonging. And belonging is when like people welcome you the way you are, but fitting in is when you feel like you need to change yourself to
Mm-hmm.
put yourself in a situation where you will be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like what you're saying is to seek belonging and not fitting in just to fit in.
Yeah, definitely. I think like I always grew up with a group of Indian girlfriends, but then when I became a Christian, they kind of all like they were all weirded out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And something I have now, it's okay. Something I have now is a really great group of friends where I find belonging with them. But sometimes I'm still sad because none of them are Indian. And, I couldn't force myself to fit in with the girls who looked like me because it just wasn't organic.
Right, right. I feel that and the loneliness of it. I live
Right.
in an isolated community where, yeah, there aren't brown people that have the same worldview and faith that I have. And so it's
Right.
like, oh, like I love these people, but there's like something missing. So,
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's the difference between like being satisfied and content, which is something I've been working through. I'm really content with my friend group and community, but that like desire to have somebody who understands me culturally as well as spiritually, who is within my proximity, isn't met, and I'm unsatisfied or dissatisfied there. And that's okay. You can be dissatisfied. You can still be content though.
that's really good. I don't think I've
I'm
ever
working
heard.
through it right now, which is why I'm able to share that.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're both brown girls with the same like type of view and yearning, right? It's a
Right.
yearning to have that. And I think it's okay to have that.
Right.
Because then if we had everything that made us like feel like, oh, everything's good, like I think life would be also boring.
Oh, and whoever actually has everything that they want,
Right. Right.
That's a little dangerous place to be.
Agreed. Agreed. Have you encountered, because of what you've gone through, people who are either angry or at the least disinterested in faith? And if so, like, how have you handled this?
Yeah, I've had like, oddly enough, like randomly Hindu men will be like in my DMs and just be so rude. But the thing is,
Is she talking to you?
Yeah, she is talking to me. She's like, don't worry about them, Mom. It's okay. Like they can be angry. I don't have to respond, and I never respond. The thing is, like, when you make bold decisions, you can expect backlash. But like, who are those people's opinion? Like, what do they really mean? If they're not invested in your life, they're not living life with you on a day in and day out basis, then their words are just like water rolling off your back. Like they can hurt for a second and you can let that pass through you, but then it's done. And you're just like, dude, you don't know me. You don't love me. You don't care for me. You don't pray for me. So your words are just going to be like a cloud passing through.
Brene Brown also talks about like who you invite into your life to offer you criticism, advice, or whatever. And she talks about, think of like a boxing ring. Like if they're not in the ring with you, they don't have the right to say anything to you.
Right.
And so kind of having that boundary, even like a visual boundary of like a boxing ring, like only people in the arena get to have a voice in your life.
Right. Absolutely.
What is something that is stereotypical of your culture or background that is actually true?
Well, I would say not really being polite, just kind of being like blunt and in your face or just honest. I never really grew up learning like please or thank you or hearing the word sorry if something was done to me. And that is very true. I have noticed that in a lot of relationships that are Indian, or friends who are dating Indian people. They're like, he never says sorry. My in-laws never like apologize. They never say please. And I'm like, yes, I mean, those polite words just aren't necessarily there. But like that overwhelming sense of like, I love you without saying I love you is also there.
Yeah. I was thinking because my family's from Kerala and our language Malayalam. I think I have asked our family and there's no like literal word for thank you. Well, there's shukriya, but like, what is the word? There's like it's like offering things or offer, but like not a please.
Right. Right.
It's like it's not even in the language because it's almost like it's assumed in the culture by like
Right.
what, like, let's say my mom did something wrong to me and she realized she did something wrong. Well, then she'll make food for me or give me
Right.
fruit. And that's the apology, right? So the heart
Exactly.
sense of apology is there,
Right.
but not the language. And that was something I was trying to learn. Like I've done a lot of work of like thinking through like of my parents coming to America and the worldview that they had and trying to make a life for themselves and discrimination and
Mm,
all that they went through. So then when I think about the deficits, you know, especially if I watch like US TV sitcoms, I'm like, hey, they don't do it this way. Like, but I'm like, but why would they? They don't, that was never modeled for them. They didn't see that. They didn't hear that. Why do I have that expectation of them?
right.
And I think it was when I became a mom that I started thinking those thoughts and like, oh, I was a bratty teenager. It wasn't always them, it was me. And so that's why they're not saying these words because it's not part of their language or their system.
That makes so much sense.
So based on like how you grew up and your husband too, because I'm sure he has a good voice with the whole parenting thing.
Mm.
What are some things that you want to teach your kids that you're like, I missed this. I want them to have this.
Oh, so we've been teaching them sorry, like using sorry, not just when they do something, but when we do something.
Mm,
That was a big thing. Like
mhm,
if I raised my voice at my daughter, sitting her down and saying like, mommy is sorry. That was not okay for mommy to raise her voice at you. Will you forgive me? And she
mm,
like just kind of looks at me and thinks, and she goes, yeah, mommy, I forgive you. I've never had a conversation like that with my parents. And there's so much like decades of just lack of conflict resolution that I had to do so much counseling for with premarital because I was taking that same skill or lack of skill of conflict resolution into marriage.
mhm,
Counselor's like, you need to like say sorry, and you need to also expect, like you can expect resolution. Like you can talk to him and say, this hurt my feelings. You don't have to just forgive him without saying, this hurt my feelings. And I was like,
mhm.
what?
Yes, that is, it's work because if we never did it, it
Right.
takes a while, right?
Right. It's a lot of humility that's necessary and like denying of ego. Um, so
Okay, really important questions now.
sure.
Do you own a curry leaf plant?
I do not.
We
Oh, I do
talk about how,
not.
like it's kind of like you've definitely adulted as a South Asian if you own a curry leaf plant.
I don't, but I do have like a mortar and pestle
Pestle? Oh,
for grinding my cardamom pods for my chai. So
very good. Yeah, we didn't grow up grinding it. Well, actually, in our home in Carolyn, with a lot of homes with chaya, we don't put any spices in it unless it's like special occasion. Like if people are coming over, then we'll put cardamom. Otherwise, like my family never put any spices in it. And
oh
I never heard of masala chai with all those spices until I think it was after Starbucks. Like, because I didn't know people who made chai like that.
yeah, we put cardamom and ginger, loose leaf black tea, some sugar if we want, cinnamon maybe. It's yummy.
Yeah, now I do, especially because now I've learned more about like the natural medicinal properties of all those spices. So now that is something I do almost daily. But it's only like post-pandemic that I started doing it. And I had a mortar pestle originally, but it wasn't doing the job. So I got like a real granite one of like
Oh,
gonna do it the right way. So is that your beverage of choice, or is it tea or coffee or another beverage? If you're
um,
like, that's my go-to drink.
okay, so this is really lame, but I drink a ton of water. Like I have a 60-ounce bottle by my bed every day, a 40-ounce by my laptop, and then those are like what I drink every single day, no doubt.
Wow.
Like I love water. And
Wow.
then if it's not water, I love chai.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if I ever get to Boston, like let's make chai together.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you would like your listeners to know if they are hesitant about making a bold move themselves?
Yeah, I would say if you're hesitant, seek good counsel. So those are people who truly want the best for you, and not just a group of people, not one person, but get a variety of opinions from people who truly want the best for you, because then you can kind of get your pros and cons right away. If everyone's like, yeah, do it, that's great. But if somebody you love is like, I don't think this is a good idea, you can at least listen to their input before you still make your decision. You don't need everyone to say do it for you to do it, but you want to cover your bases and really think through it before you do it.
Yeah, because I feel like you can hear a variety on the spectrum of opinions, and then it can get confusing.
Right, but it's all people who love you. So like an example, when I became a Christian, my close girlfriends, Indian girlfriends, were like, you should not do this. My parents were like, you should not do this. And those are people I love. But then like my other friends were like, if this is what, you feel like God is telling you, or you feel like this is what's happening, then yeah, absolutely go for it. And then like, obviously me and God, like talking to him and being like, are you real? Is this real? Like, what's happening? And that's a whole other story. But I still heard like what my parents said, what my Indian girlfriend said, and like really thought through it. And I wasn't just like, I'm just gonna become a Christian. Like I really thought through like what they were saying and the implications of it, and ultimately made the decision of, yeah, I do like want to follow Jesus. But I think they also felt heard and respected that I was open to what they had to say.
Yeah, that's really good. As we're wrapping up, where can people find you? Do you have anything coming up that you want to let people know about?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at The Honest Shruth, and my website is thehonestshruth.com. Anything coming up? We've got a lot of travel planned for this year, which is kind of fun because I haven't added much travel into my content in the last 3 years of having babies. So I would say there's going to be a lot of fun baby travel content coming up this year. If you all are planning trips with your little ones, or anyone is, you can check that out then. You can check that out there.
I just heard about somebody going on a plane to India, like, any advice for traveling with babies? And so I think especially like with the summer coming up, I think that's something people are really gonna want to hear about. So, well, good. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just thank you so much for having me. It's always so nice to chat with someone who's also, an Indian American woman and connect at that cultural level. We get to connect at both levels, which is really sweet. But even just connecting with an Indian American woman is like such a treat because, there aren't that many of us.
There aren't that many of us. Yeah. Well, it has been my honor to have you here, Shruthi. I watch you and I'm like, I don't know, she has time for this because she has got, I have 3 children also, except now they're all adults. But when they were little, I'm like, oh, I barely have time for anything. So I'm so happy it worked out for you to be on here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you all for joining us on this edition of Being Bold and Brown. We will be here next week with our next episodes. Till then, be wise and be bold.
Bye.